the process of retracting published scientific articles that contain errors or are subject to scientific misconduct is very crucial to upholding the scientific standards. Hello, I'm Niina Sormanen. I'm a postdoctoral researcher from the LUT University, Lappeenranta University of Technology. I'm also collaborating with the University of Turku with the Unreliable Science project. Today, I'm going to talk about our new matrix model of retraction reasons that we based on the wider discussion of scientific mis- and disinformation in the academic field. So why is there a need for a new model? First of all, the process of retracting published scientific articles that contain errors or are subject to scientific misconduct is very crucial to upholding the scientific standards. When a research has been published, it needs to be flagged out if there are some issues in it. Various previous studies have categorized retraction reasons of published science articles. Nevertheless, these existing studies, they mostly give an overview of the most recurring reasons of retraction and identify the reasons as either misconduct or honest mistakes, meaning that they focus mostly on the intention to deceive. Also, the studies have differing notions of what counts as honest mistake and a data error, and what counts as more serious data errors and misconduct. The previous studies also leave out the consideration of the retraction reasons in the wider academic discussion of scientific mis- and disinformation and the examination of the research effects on society, because only a part of misconduct in science affects the society. It only affects the academic field. So in our approach of categorizing the retraction reasons, we investigated previous studies on retraction reasons and added the viewpoint of scientific mis- and disinformation. Scientific misinformation is false information spread without the intent to mislead. And scientific disinformation is false information that is spread deliberately. From here arose the need to examine the retraction reasons based on validity, that is, to which degree the reasons invalidates the research, and this was done in addition to examining the intention to deceive, that is, the degree that the research parties deliberately tried to mislead. To examine the validity, we made a new empirical definition of unreliable science, that is, errors in the research process, including data, analysis, and reporting of results, which are serious enough to invalidate a paper's results and conclusions. This definition made it possible to locate those retracted research that have most potential effects on future research and many aspects of society, for example, healthcare. Then the reasons were further analyzed in terms of intention. Some unreliable science reasons are serious, but they are honest mistakes, and they could be corrected and republished. But some are intentional, and they are considered severe academic misconduct, which should not be republished. So we decided to categorize all retraction reasons and their explanations from the Retraction Watch database and examine their validity, that is unreliable science, and intention. We identified 4 main types of retracted articles. They are listed in their descending order of severe effects on society. The first one is critical disinformation, which is unreliable science with identified intention to deceive. These are, for example, falsification of data and results. Second, we have critical misinformation, which is also unreliable science and has critical errors, but this category is due to honest mistakes. This is, for example, errors in the data or the results. Then we have the category of inconsequential misconduct. This is not necessarily unreliable science because the results are not necessarily compromised. This is due to scientific misconduct, for example, plagiarism or duplicating data or articles. Then we have inconsequential errors, and these are not usually unreliable science. They are honest errors, usually based on, for example, communication between the authors and the publishers, or, for example, citing retracted work. So based on all of these analyses, we made a matrix model of retraction reasons based on the validity and the intentionality. On the up, we have two categories of unreliable science. On the upper left, we have critical misinformation. So this is the critical errors that are due to honest mistake. Based on the guidelines of recognized COPE Council and medical guidelines, this is unreliable science that is resulted from honest errors and should be corrected and republished whenever possible. On the upper right, we have critical disinformation. This is critical errors that are misconduct. And these kind of unreliable science should never be corrected and republished based on the guidelines. On the lower side, we have the inconsequential misconduct on the right. This is scientific misconduct, but this is not as erroneous as the critical disinformation. It doesn't necessarily invalidate the results, but this is misconduct in the academic field. But if the media report about this, they are actually doing their role as the watchdogs of the powerful in the society. Finally, we have the inconsequential errors, which are small mistakes, for example, in communication. And these aspects should always be handled and the research published whenever possible. So, thank you. This was my take on the matrix and our work on retracted articles amidst the scientific mis- and disinformation environment.